Good afternoon. My name is Ali Colon, and I am the Knight Professor of Media Ethics at Washington Lee University. I want to welcome you to the keynote address of our 63rd Institute on Media Ethics. Before I introduce this evening's distinguished speaker, Jill Geisler, who is a renowned leadership expert, I want to recognize and thank the professionals who have been gracious enough to join us for this weekend as fellows. I'd like the fellows to please stand as I introduce you and remain standing until all of you have been named. And if you could hold your applause until everyone has been recognized, I'd appreciate it. So this is in alphabetical order. Lily Ng, who is the West Coast lead and vice president for Ogilvy Public Relations. Vicki Kruger, who is the marketing communications manager at the Poynter Institute, which is a global leader in journalism. Chase Noyes, account supervisor digital at Edelman and a 2010 alum. Brian Pollard, director of tribal relations, Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative at the University of Arkansas School of Law. Jan Hopkins, president of the Jan Hopkins Group, a communications company. And Eduardo Suñol, Vice President, News, Digital, NBC Universal, and Telemundo. Thank you very much. Okay, I also want to acknowledge the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which makes my position possible, so I'm very grateful for that, and which is underwriting our Ethics Institute and the lecture this afternoon. Now, Jill Geisler, our keynote speaker, makes the following 2 points right up front on her LinkedIn page. Number one, the most important thing leaders do is help others succeed. Number two, life's too short to work with jerks. For those of you who still have a long life ahead, remember that, because it will be a long life of jerks if you don't make a good decision. I have benefited from Jill's leadership, wisdom, expertise, and mentoring since I met her 19 years ago at the Poynter Institute. Poynter, as I mentioned earlier, is a global leader in journalism for professional journalists seeking training. In her time as a leadership group leader, Jill brought innovation, integrity, and insight into the art of management and leadership. And scores of budding and experienced leaders benefited. Jill made Poynter's leadership seminars so popular, she created a leadership academy. That academy involved at least 3 leadership seminars taking place simultaneously and separately at the Poynter Institute under Jill's highly efficient orchestration. And I mean efficiency with a capital E. She provided us with, to help those of us who helped her lead these seminars, with a playbook about how we could do that. We knew exactly what to do. And I thought I remembered that she even had a line there, but told us, don't panic, you're doing just fine, keep going, it'll work out. And indeed it did. Never had a glitch, and had a tremendous number of leaders who came through those academies that came in one way, and I promise you, they went out another way in their wisdom and their understanding of what to do. Since leaving Poynter to form her own leadership company, Jill continues to move at a pace that might leave others gasping. For example, she recently shared with me her schedule for the 30 days before coming here, and her schedule included conducting a leadership workshop at West Virginia University, conducted an Illinois workshop for the Mid-America Press Institute, served as a judge at the University of Wisconsin to judge the Anthony Shadid Award, a tribute to a 2-time Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, facilitated a budget rollout for the president of Loyola University of Chicago, will be in DC for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, brainstorm leaders for public TV, go to Purdue University to lead a leadership conference, business conference on innovative distribution in manufacturing. Even manufacturing is going to benefit from the leadership that's going to get a gift. She already has led leadership sessions at the Williams School yesterday and participated in the Ethics Institute this afternoon. Tomorrow she'll spend another day with us, looking at case studies with us. And when she leaves, she'll go to a boot camp for Copy Editors Conference, be at the University of Wisconsin at Madison as a panelist for the Center of Journalism Ethics, then next to DC to facilitate the Unity Journalist Diversity Caucus, then jump out of, no, that's not jump out of a plane. Oh, sorry, I meant she's getting on a plane and going to DC, from DC to Stanford University for the Knight Fellows in Journalism and Innovation to prepare intersections of leadership, ethics, and diversity. I consider it an honor that Jill, who is the Bill Plante Chair in Leadership and Media Integrity at Loyola University in Chicago, and who has written a book on leadership with the title Work Happy, agreed to be our keynote speaker tonight. Thank you, Jill. Please welcome.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? You look terrific. All right, so we're going to talk tonight about truth and trust. Lead from where you are. So let me start by telling you that when my sons, Noah and McNeil, were little boys, I would encourage them to take a picture with your mind, to look closely at something worth remembering. I remember doing that on a crisp Wisconsin fall day, that's where we live, when sunlight on the trees made the changing leaves seem to glow. And you know those yellow ones that always seem almost electric? Take a picture with your mind, I'd tell them. In fact, that's what I thought when I was coming here from Roanoke. We were driving in, it was late in the day, the sun was coming down, and everything on the mountains looked beautiful, and it glowed. And I took a picture with my mind. Now, doing that, of course, was before technology let us all just snap a picture with our phones. Yep, there was such a time. But stay with me. Taking a picture with your mind is still a very important act. It's more than just documenting an image. It is committing a moment to your memory, not just what you see, but what it means to you, what it stands for. When you take a picture with your mind, you file it in your heart. That's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. Here's what I'd like you to do, please. I know you're seated, but you can still do this. I would like you to look around right now, and I want you to look at the faces of people in this room. Go ahead. Go ahead. Take a picture with your mind. Look at those who chose to be here today. Look at the big picture, how many. Look at the individual faces. Make sure you've looked into someone's eyes, and make sure you smile. You are looking at people who chose to be in a community with ethics at its core. People who are here right now, okay, some of you maybe to get a grade or extra credit, but mostly to listen and to learn and to share as we think deeply about integrity. And if I have anything to do with it, you're also people who will leave here ready to lead as never before. You got the picture now, you've looked around, you made a picture with your mind. It's pretty good, right? Well, it will get better. Let's work on it together. Let's start with a candid look at the challenges that face journalism today. Please note that I didn't say media. Too many people use that word interchangeably with journalism. And there's a big difference. Think of media as a great big tent with lots of different voices inside it. Now, some of those voices spout opinions. Some of those voices in the media make jokes. That's cool. I like to watch them. Some in the media do interviews. Some capture images. Some share information on issues of public policy. Some share information on celebrities. Some collect the stories that other people created and then they repackage them and they repurpose them. Some of those voices arrive via radio, TV, and podcasts. Some appear as the printed word still on paper, and some of those voices appear digitally and on social media. That's a lot of voices under one big tent called media. And that's just the start of the catalog, because let's parse things a little more finely. Among those many voices, some believe their role is to inform. Some believe their role is to entertain. Some believe their role is to persuade and influence. Some base their messages on research. Some have a commitment to verification. Some have a process for quality control. Some have a process for filtering out even unintended bias. Some of them show their math, transparently sharing the data and the documents behind their conclusions. Some commit to correcting errors prominently, if painfully. Some commit to finding untold stories and diverse voices. And some don't do those good things. But they're all media, aren't they? All painted with the same broad brush. And that's where our work comes in. If truth is to matter and trust is to be earned, then it's on those of us in this room, all those faces you filed away when you took that picture with your mind, it's on us to make things better. We are the ones who can distinguish quality journalism from the mass of voices and the mess of voices that we call media. We are the ones who can identify, categorize, and prioritize those voices, motives, and standards. And I believe it's not just possible, but that we are in a golden moment of opportunity. Of course we have challenges. We are a polarized nation. We have built our own information silos and rarely venture from them, some of us. Some of us know more about La La Land than we do about Afghanistan. And we may prefer news to be given to us for free, though the quality kind is costly to produce. We have seen newsrooms downsized from lean and mean to undernourished and discouraged as the business model has changed. And we have a glut of entrepreneurs who create fake news sites and stories for fun and profit. We have confirmation bias, all of us, that causes us to want to believe stories that support our existing views and turn away from those that challenge us. We know that even when people are presented with fact checks about false stories, they often dig in more deeply into their beliefs and find other reasons to cling to them. And we have a commander-in-chief who has called journalists the enemy of the people. Now, reporters have, and always will and should, create some tension between themselves and the powerful. After all, it's their duty to shine light in places that others would like to see remain dark. But this particular administration's antipathy and false accusations against journalism are unprecedented, and they are dangerous. What a great moment to lead the way toward truth and trust. What a great place to start, right here, among these faces you've already pictured, and the voices that some of you have heard today and will hear tomorrow, but you'll listen to in other voices in the days ahead. So what do? Do we buy ads and wear buttons that say, "Trust us, we're journalists"? Well, we may be blessed with some wonderful students of strategic communication in this room. I've met you. You're really good. But this is more than just marketing. Leading the way to truth and trust takes a multifaceted plan that each person in this room can help lead from wherever we are. Well, here's where we are today. We inhabit 3 roles, each of us. We are producers of news, we are consumers of news, and we are distributors of news. And I'd like to look at each one of those roles and responsibilities with you. Let's talk about the producers, number 1. Because of digital technology, the barrier to entry to be a producer is now quite low. You don't have to be a wealthy person. You don't have to belong to an organization. And for that reason, we end up with 4 types of producers. Number 1 is the traditional, otherwise referred to as the mainstream media. And I'm going to look you all straight in the eye and say, I am a proud member of the mainstream media. I think it's more important than ever, and that's everything from your school paper to the New York Times to CNN. MSM follows a time-honored rule book, one that I hold dear. Strive for accuracy and fairness. Verify. Tell stories in context. Hold the powerful accountable, but hold yourself accountable too. Number 2 are the self-interested producers. There are businesses and nonprofits who now create and distribute their own stories. Let me tell you about a friend of mine. She's the president of the American Society of Copy Editors. Her name is Teresa Schmetting, and she recently moved from a long-time career in newspapers. She was an editor there, and now she's joined Rotary International, the nonprofit civic organization of business people that try to celebrate best practices in business and civic responsibility, and also take on community service projects. Teresa is now a part of at least 150 others in the communications section of Rotary. They produce and design and edit long and short form articles for this nonprofit's magazine and website. They develop photos, videos, documentaries, and even virtual reality productions. And as president of ACES, she just told me that journalists once dominated ACES. Vicki Kruger is here. She knows this as a longtime member. It was once a journalism organization. Would you like to guess what percentage of ACES, American Society of Copy Editors membership, now comes from newspapers? Think it's 50%? 40? 30? 20? It's 12%. Now, another 13%. I corrected it. I'm mainstream media. I run corrections. 13 for newspapers, 12% for magazines. The rest are from marketing, corporations, the government, nonprofits, websites, freelancers, students, and retirees. Again, anyone can be a publisher, a producer. And those people, like Rotary, want to make certain their content is well designed and easy to consume. The NFL and other sports organizations no longer depend on traditional mass media to put out their stories. They can produce many of their own. Companies create and distribute their own messages. Now, many of these self-interested producers come to their work with a different mission than journalists. Their primary loyalty is to their organization, not to the public. They are in business to help their businesses do well. That doesn't necessarily mean they're bad people or intend to deceive. Many do excellent work on behalf of their organizations, and they can contribute to the civic good, no doubt. But they're not on a mission to uncover information that is unflattering or damaging to the home team, even if it might be of great interest to the public. Now, in addition to the traditional and the self-interested, there are citizen producers today. Anyone can create a site, a YouTube channel, a Twitter following, an Instagram community. You can use Facebook to live stream a fire, a political rally, or sadly, tragically, a suicide. You can publish a great piece of writing on a platform like Medium, right along other writers like John McCain or Joe Biden, who published on Medium. In fact, right now, we would not be buzzing about a sexual harassment scandal at Uber if a former employee had not published her personal account on her blog and another employee had followed it up on Medium. Now we're looking into it because self-publishing brought it to our attention. Publishing has been democratized. It can be an open platform that can serve a whistleblower or a blowhard, a truth teller or a prevaricator, a researcher or a conspiracy theorist. Okay, traditional, self-interested, citizen. The fourth is advocacy organizations. They also publish their own information. They can be political parties, candidates, ideologically focused. I'm going to move this microphone because I think I'm making too much noise to you nice people when I lean down. How's that? Ideologically focused think tanks or issue-driven organizations like the NRA or the AFL-CIO. They can also be publications like InfoWars or Breitbart or Mother Jones or Think Progress that exist to have a point of view. Now, unlike the self-interested producers, these are entities that want you not just to think well of them. They want to change your mind, move you to action, and to influence your decisions as a citizen. Their mission is to shape the debate and ultimately to win it. They do not feel obligated to present the other side's best arguments. They exist to delegitimize them. And there's a dangerous genre of advocacy producer that has set off alarm bells across the world. And those are, of course, the fake news merchants. Now, let's be very clear about our definitions here. Fake news is not commentary clearly labeled as such. It isn't news I disagree with. Commentary isn't news that contains a factual error that for which an organization issues a correction and an apology. It is full-throated, intentional misrepresentation of facts, often done in hyperbolic language with in-your-face memes and graphics, all of which have one goal: get you as a reader emotionally charged up. You see it and it gets you mad. It just causes you to say, that's terrible, that's outrageous, or I've got to see more, and click on the article. But not just click on it, share it on social media, where like-minded friends will also accept it because of your explicit or implied endorsement of it, and they'll click on it as well. Now, those clicks upon clicks have turned to cash for the fake news sites. In fact, Google and Facebook have started now to try to reckon with this and not reward that kind of entrepreneurship. But we're not where we need to be. You've probably heard about Craig Silverman of BuzzFeed, who did research that discovered teenagers in Macedonia who created a lucrative cottage industry in fake news during our presidential campaign. Fantasy stories in which the Pope endorsed Donald Trump. And you probably didn't know this, but Michelle Obama demanded that the US government pay her mother a $160,000 a year pension for taking care of the kids in the White House. Pretty outrageous and totally untrue. But they weren't alone. They were joined by sites that took a different tack and probably more troubling tack, according to a team of researchers from Harvard and MIT. They published their report in the March 3rd edition of the Columbia Journalism Review. What they found was that it wasn't just about fake news. There was a different ecosystem that existed among people who retweeted or re-Facebooked, right, shared on Facebook, Hillary Clinton tweets or stories, and those who did the same on Twitter and Facebook for Donald Trump. And what they found was that in the Hillary Clinton universe or ecosystem, the primary anchors were the New York Times and the Washington Post and Politico and CNN, and then sort of smaller constellations, smaller planets in that constellation were point of view sites, right? We're talking about now mainstream sites, but then there were some point of view sites like Mother Jones or like Think Progress and the Huffington Post, which were a part of it, but not as big. They were there, but it was an and. Over on this side, what the researchers found was that this ecosystem was anchored in Breitbart. And Breitbart does not follow the same rules that the Washington Post and the New York Times do. They play by a different set of rules. Breitbart, Fox, Gateway Pundit, Daily Caller, InfoWars, okay, were all the primary ecosystem, and a little bit of New York Times and Washington Post. Here's what the researchers wrote. What we find in our data is a network of mutually reinforcing hyper-partisan sites that revive what historian Richard Hofstadter called the paranoid style in American politics, combining decontextualized truths, repeated falsehoods, and leaps of logic to create a fundamentally misleading view of the world. Fake news, which implies something made of whole cloth by politically disinterested parties out to make a buck on Facebook advertising sites, rather than propaganda and disinformation, is not an adequate term. In this ecosystem, by repetition, variation, and circulation through many of those associated sites, the network of sites made their claims familiar to readers, and this fluency with the core narrative gives credence to the incredible. So it wasn't totally fake, because, you know, I was told long ago, in every good lie there's a little truth. That's how you make it a good lie. Because at some point someone has to say, well, that part of it is true, right? And that little bit of truth gives credence to the rest of the lie. And that's what we have to be careful about. The researchers found that these hyperpartisan sites were part of a Breitbart news ecosystem, stories exchanged and amplified, and it didn't flourish on this side, only on this side, but it influenced the coverage that mainstream news organizations found themselves doing. There was so much conversation here that you couldn't say it didn't exist. You had to respond to it. You had to fact check it. But even in the fact checking, you repeated it. So those are the producers, the traditional, the self-interested, the citizens, the advocates, including the most toxic, the fakers and deceivers. And there are the consumers. That's all of us. Today, we stand before an all-you-can-eat buffet of information. You know, a person who really wanted to could gorge himself on quality information. It's still out there, even in the face of challenged business models. Or focus group tested content that prioritizes the close to home over international stories. But it's out there. Lots of it's available at the buffet. But isn't it interesting that we don't have an information obesity problem in this country? We do not overload our plates with heaping helpings of hard news. We're more likely to follow that cute saying, life's too short, eat dessert first. Okay, I like dessert as much as the next person, but perhaps we can do better than fat and empty calories. And let me tell you something that I saw today that reinforces it. I'm sad to tell you that yesterday, when a woman, you may have heard of her, she's an internationally renowned human rights lawyer, her name is Amal Clooney, she spoke to the United Nations and she called out ISIS as a cause of genocide. And as she did that, a site for women that's run by young women, run by Time magazine, it's called Motto, headlined that story. Let me make sure I've got it right. Amal Clooney shows off her baby bump at the United Nations. And others talked about how she rocked her yellow dress. Those stories were on E! News, ET, Hollywood Life. Okay? They missed an important story, didn't they, when they focused on the baby bump and the beautiful yellow dress. But maybe we were drawn to it. Maybe that was our empty calories. And then there are the distributors. Hey, that's us too. It's another part of the democratization of information. We are all not only able to create, but to share. You don't have to own a broadcast outlet or a fleet of newspaper delivery trucks. You can forward, embed, tweet, share, and podcast. I'm teaching a course on podcasting at Loyola University this semester. My students' work is on their personal websites, as well as on iTunes and on Stitcher. No middle person is needed to share their brilliance. They're integrating social media into their work so they can build communities of interest around their specialized topics, and those communities will then serve as helpful distributors. If something seems worthwhile, they'll spread the word on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Snapchat, or even email. Remember email? If something seems worthwhile, remember those words, just as you remember the faces that you captured in your mind as we began our little walk together tonight. Because we've now arrived at the moment in which we're faced with the question, what's worthwhile? As producers, as consumers, as distributors, what's worthwhile? Well, of this I have no doubt. Worthwhile is ethical. Worthwhile is principled. Worthwhile serves to make people smarter, not more confused. Worthwhile serves to inform, not inflame. It says, look at all points of view, not just the one I favor. It serves to help people find common ground rather than to feed conflict. Worthwhile is hard work. It's checking facts and facing tough editors with challenging questions. Worthwhile is recognizing that we all have biases, but if we're on the side of worthwhile, we keep those biases in cages as we report our stories. Worthwhile is believing in civility and context and apologies, at admitting what we don't know while keeping a passion for learning more. As a news producer, whether traditional, self-interested, citizen, or advocate, how can you do better? As I'm working with my podcasting students, a key component isn't just finding an interesting topic and someone to talk to. They're going to do research. Because as I tell them, anyone can have a voice. You want to be seen as a knowledgeable, informed voice. How will you stand for worthwhile as a consumer? How will you fortify your diet? What will you add to your plate? Where will you dine for the first time, even if it seems like it's a place where people who differ with you hang out? What ethnic dish are you going to try? Maybe a taste of something that makes you smarter about cultures other than your own. And if you don't mind my talking money here, do you expect a free meal? Or do you expect you might maybe kick in a little cash to keep the kitchen open? That's happening right now, you know. The administration's attacks on journalism have led to generous contributions to solid investigative sites like ProPublica. In fact, to the Poynter Institute to fund an ethics chair, right? And it also led people to subscribe in greater numbers to the New York Times and the Washington Post. Local and regional news outlets are hoping for the same. Worthwhile. Will you support it? As a distributor, we need also to think about worthwhile. Are you sharing the best of the best? Will you curate exemplary journalism and route it responsibly on your social networks? I need to tell you something. For as long as I've been on social media, I've operated with a promise that I made to myself. I will never share anything based on a headline only. I will open the link, I will see the story, the source, and the quality before I retweet or share. Now, I know that's not so common. There are times that I've tweeted out my latest column for the Columbia Journalism Review, and within seconds, somebody retweets it. Now, I know they're trying to be complimentary, but I don't think it's a compliment that they act on blind faith that if it comes from me, it's worth sharing. They don't really know what I've just done. I want them to check it out. I should earn every retweet that I get, and so should you. So remember when I asked you to take that picture with your mind, to look at the dedicated ethicists around the room? And by the way, all the students in my ethics classes I refer to as ethicists. I believe that what you are called is what you will think of yourself as. If someone says you're foolish, you might think you are. If someone thinks you're great, you might think that too. And if I tell you you're an ethicist, you may just say, that's the title I want to be known as. So look at the ethicists in this room. We talked about that. Can I ask you to just take one more look at the ethicists around here? Okay? Now, I want to do it the new way. If you don't mind, I would like to ask you all to stand. Okay, we're going to make one more memory. But I need you to do it with your cell phones this time. Please, all of you take out your cell phones. Okay, everybody got your cell phone? Will you set it up for camera? You can do either video or still, whichever you like. Right? Now, you all set? Because now this is going to get really complicated. You need you to be multitaskers. Camera's going to be in your left hand, because your right hand is going to go up in the air. All right? Are you ready? Now, you can roll right now if you'd like and repeat after me. This is a promise. If you'd like to repeat, you go right ahead. You ready? Rolling. I will produce with integrity and quality. Repeat. I will consume more and better information and fight the fakers.
I will consume more and better information and fight the fakers.
I might even pay for my news. I will distribute with discretion.
I will distribute with discretion.
I will share with care.
I will share with care.
Because I am an ethical communicator. And I can lead from wherever I am. Thank you. All right, now, do you have any questions, my ethical communicators? Who has a question? Oh, selfies, good. And that's an ethical selfie. I was going to go photobomb them, but I thought I'd slow things down. All right, who has a question? Yes?
What are the types of things you find yourself taking mental images of every day?
Oh, what a good question. What are the things that I find myself taking mental images of every day? I had a terrific conversation with Joan from Allie's office a little earlier. I like to take mental images of people who have a passion for the work that they do. We were talking about the wonderful guy from the university who drove me from the airport here, and how he talked about the students and how much he cared about them and everything, that he gets to go to all the games, right? And he was giving me a tour of the campus even as we drove. And the mental image for me, I wanted to know why someone cared that much about his job, right? Because if you're studying, your field of expertise here, you might say, driving a car, driving a bus, what's that all about, right? That was a calling for him. He sees himself as integral to the life of the university and the connections with students. And he talks about, he's been here 8 years, and students who come back to go to games, and then they look him up. So that picture is in my mind. I'm remembering everything that happened on a car ride. And I do that because I work with leaders who are responsible for the work of others. And I'm fascinated about motivation. And so I take pictures of things like that, and I keep them in my mind and heart. Yes?
In your own efforts to kind of follow your principles of ethical communication, to evaluate sources' quality and fight your own biases and that kind of thing, when do you find yourself most challenged or most tempted to break them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So I have about 7,500 followers on Twitter. And I've decided that when I share things, they have to be either important about leadership and management, or about fact-checking or ethical journalism. Or it's about a topic that may be the subject of reporting. And I have to stop myself sometimes, because if I'm seeing a fact check, let's say PolitiFact gave up pants on fire to something, even if I happen to think I agree with the source they're checking, that in the main 90% of what that person does is righteous, they were wrong here, I can't just say, well, I'm going to give that person a pass. And I have to have a conversation with myself that says, you know what, that might make them look bad, even if they're good, but if I don't want someone, I assume I have to be transparent, that my Twitter feed is transparent. And I don't want somebody to say, look, I've looked at what you've tweeted. You've tweeted everything that's detrimental to one side of a political argument. Every fact check that was loaded to make somebody look bad. So I have to be an equal opportunity sharer, even if I feel as though I'd rather vote for this one or that one, because we're all human and we're all biased, and that's the thing I have to keep telling you. If you commit to journalism, you commit that you're not disinterested. You haven't cut off your brain or your heart. You have strong passions, and they inform some of the writing that you do and the reading that you do. But you commit to saying, I'm going to see what the most logical opposing argument is. I used to be on the editorial board of our television station when I was a news director. And whenever someone would come in, let's just say it was someone from the electric company that wanted to talk to us about rate increases, and they wanted everybody to know, because the station did editorials, why their position was going to be right before they went before the Public Service Commission. I would always ask the question, what do you think the best argument your opponents would be? And when I'd ask that, if they would say something like, well, they just want to run your life and tell you what's good for you, they'd lose points with me. I wanted someone to say, well, actually, here's what they're going to say. They're going to refer you to this information. We'd like you to take a look at that, because it's important that you know that, and here's how we'd respond to it. And I'd say, you know what? They weren't afraid of putting the best argument out that the opponent had. We have bias, but we have to keep them in cages, right? And if we decide that we're not going to do on the one hand, on the other hand, reporting, right? Then if you're known for being someone who keeps your biases in cages and someone who does such good research that you can say, by the way, now I'm going to tell you this, whether it's climate change or something like that, the preponderance of evidence tells us this, and I can stand behind it. And so to me, it's always being careful not to let yourself go too much toward all of that emotion that takes you to things that you might want to advocate for. Now, I will advocate for journalism. I will advocate for a free press. I will advocate for good management. I will advocate against jerks. There are some things you can go straight, you can go straight forward and do. But I think you have to be absolutely transparent about what you're doing and why. Yes?
So I've read a lot about how like social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and sites like Google are pulling advertising dollars from journalism, right? And that obviously like disrupts a huge chunk of their business model, because a lot of the money that supports journalism comes from advertising. So I wanted to know what you thought, like Facebook and Instagram and Google, like what is the responsibility to keep journalism alive, specifically in the context of like journalism as like the backbone of American democracy?
Sure. So the question was, what are all of the social media sites or the new platforms that have taken away advertising dollars? That could be Craigslist, for example, too. What, if anything, are their responsibilities with respect to sustaining the journalism that they have contributed to eroding the business model of? It's interesting because news organizations, media companies, have themselves to blame for failing to look forward, for failing to be entrepreneurial, for believing that an advertising model that once existed will always exist, and for enjoying the fruits, the great lucrative fruits of great businesses for a long time. Having said that, there have always been titans of industry who decided that civic virtue required that they sustain the arts, that they sustain education. And so what we are seeing now, and there have been some who have made this call to action, saying, what are you going to do, Mark Zuckerberg, what are you going to do, folks from Google, to help sustain journalism? And in some ways, they have started to do that. They have made some contributions. They have become much more collaborative. They have not done some things like open up the algorithms to show exactly how the sausage is made when they are passing things along. If you buy an ad, they're more than happy to tell you that they can micro-target, that Facebook can micro-target the audience you want to reach. But they're not going to tell you exactly how to micro-target if you're trying to enhance journalism. But we're moving, I think, in that direction with better collaborations and conversation. And so I will just say we can be a voice for that as well. But we can't do it in a way that says we aren't going to innovate and we aren't going to pay for important things ourselves, like investment in research and development. In our ethics seminar today, Vicki from Poynter was talking about how the Institute is now receiving contributions from organizations, foundations, businesses that want to support fact-checking training. And one of the things we say is, well, they're doing it because organizations can't. Well, not always necessarily can't. Sometimes they just won't pay for training. Over the years that we taught ethics, that Allie and I and others who were involved in teaching ethics at the Poynter Institute, often organizations didn't call us in about ethics. They didn't send people to our seminars. They called us in after they had a mistake, after there was a problem. They didn't see preventive medicine as something worth investing in. And so we also have to hold private industry, the media industry, the journalism industry, accountable as well, while we are saying, shame on you for that, and let's help you out over here. Right? Anyone else? Yes?
Who can you mention as role models of good journalistic practice and good ethical journalism?
Who would I consider role models for good journalistic practice? Well, I don't like to deify people, right? Because I look toward people who are really good writers, who have a really strong commitment to getting the whole story and do contextual journalism. And those are people that I have worked with shoulder to shoulder in my newsroom and face to face at the Poynter Institute in seminar after seminar. And that's the thing that I often tell people on Twitter. I'll put something out. I retweeted a factoid from the Pew Research Center 2 days ago, and it said that they were doing research on people's beliefs about journalists. And they were breaking down those people who believed that journalists made up sources. And it said, I can't remember the exact number, it was something like, check my number on this, but like 73% of Republicans, that number may be high or low, but it was X percent, it was a large percent of Republicans believed that journalists made up sources. And so I overtweeted that and said the word sigh, and then I've spent time with legions of quality journalists who would fire someone for doing this, okay? Those are my role models, those are my heroes. And when a person then overtweeted mine and said, thoughtful journalism, what a concept. And it was someone who believed that a lot of journalists make things up. And my response, and I really believe strongly in this, I don't think we should be spitting at each other. I see too many people on social media saying, you're an idiot. What I responded instead was, I wish I could take you into newsrooms with me so you could meet some of these people in action, honest. And I said hi to the person because research also says that we don't change our point of view during an argument very easily. We don't do it because of insults. We start to change our point of view or be open to new insights when someone we agree with starts to say it, or someone with whom we may disagree finds common ground with us somewhere. And it may be just on a point of civility, because the easiest way to stay where you are is to say, the people who have a different opinion are jerks and idiots, and they insult me when I try to talk with them. And so even if you think it's a waste of time to try, I think trying is important. I think showing your math is important. I think inviting people in to see the best of your point of view, not to try to tell them, this isn't a wrestling, an arm wrestling match to say, come on, say you're wrong. No, it's come on, let's talk. And we aren't doing that. And we also don't have many programmatic platforms that encourage that either, because conflict can be sexy. Yelling can get your attention. Winning and losing seems like it's a sport. We have moved away from the idea of finding common ground, getting a Venn diagram, a little part in the middle, right? Where we've got something that brings us together. And if each of us in this room commits to more of that, you're not giving something up, you're gaining. And the best journalists I've worked with, my role models, are people who always held me accountable, always made me do another fact check, right? Prove what I said. I didn't take offense at it when an editor said, it's kind of strongly worded, can you back that up? You don't take offense at it, you say, you made me better. And even believe that when your professors tell you that too. Anybody else? Yes?
What would you say to people who suggest that they don't need to pay for media if they can find it for free?
That's a good one. What do you suggest to people who say they don't have to pay for media, they should get it for free? I like to say to them, tell me about your job. What do you like doing? And when they talk about their job, and get interested in hearing about what they do. I ask them how they would like to make a living and what they're doing for society. And pretty soon as we talk about that, we recognize that for good things to happen, right, there has to be a market for it. And so some things, yes, you can get for free, but you will lose if you don't invest in them. And it should be reasonable, and you should get your money's worth, right? And now news organizations have begun to realize that they have to make it better. Good friend of mine is with the McClatchy newspapers, and she's responsible for digital innovation there and reaching out to millennials. And what they have found is that in their research around the country, they have found that millennials don't say that they don't want to pay. What they say is make it worthwhile. Bundle it up with something, with information, with tickets, with opportunities to get involved in my community in ways that I haven't, and make it easy and deliver it mobily. And so they've experimented with some things that bundle the news in with other things that it wasn't bundled in with before. And that's because people in journalism weren't thinking that way. You know, they were thinking, we give you news, that's your diet, and you take it that way. And they're not dumbing things down, thinking that because you come from a millennial and a mobile generation, you want it dumbed down. You don't. And I will also tell you that my youngest son, who is now a social media guru out in Denver, I've been in news for the majority of my life. And without subscribing to a newspaper, that young man sends me breaking news alerts before I get them. He is more news savvy, and you know, he'll take the Slate news quiz every week and get 100, and he doesn't subscribe to a hard copy of a newspaper. But he has decided there are things he's going to pay for. And he's made contributions. He made a contribution to ProPublica because it was an organization that does good investigative journalism. And I think that's where we're all going to meet. It may be that, like the arts, is what we're going to support. And when you think about it, very few people got into journalism to become millionaires, but we don't want them to starve. Nor do we want our civic discourse to starve. Anybody else? Yes?
What are your favorite news sources?
What are my favorite news sources? On my diet each day will be the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, my hometown paper, CNN, some MSNBC. I like a news aggregator called Memorandum that lets me look at a whole bunch of often politically oriented sites. Media Gazer, which does the same. I also have a Yahoo page that's set up that I aggregate a lot of things. I keep a Facebook page for, I've got about 2,500 people who, because they've read my book or were in talks that I've given, they're a community on my book's Facebook page where I curate and post stories of interest to aspiring leaders and managers. And so I have set up all kinds of news feeds to help curate those stories. So I've got a pretty big plate. And I'm trying to think of, like what are my guilty pleasures, if you want to know? What would they be? Modern Family. Right? Anybody else? Well, then I am going to take a picture of you with my mind, and I'm going to see the future. And I'm going to believe that you will lead from where you are. And I'll be proud to follow you. So thanks.